One live, Ryan. I met my wife before, and she saw me very excited, and she is used. That I interview like big celebrities, I don't know, Hollywood people like that. And she said, "Who are you interviewing? Like Will Smith?" I said, "No, no, no, no. I'm more Ryan Bankless. Do you follow Bankless?" And she looked at me. She gave me that
What a
look. Like,
letdown, huh, Monty?
yeah, we lost
My
it. We lost
apologies
him
to
in
your
the
wife.
crypto land. But
No.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to meet you, Ryan. Really, you do a fantastic job, and so I really appreciate your videos. You and David, right?
David, yeah. David and I do Bankless, exactly.
And I'm always so bad with English, and I called a friend Jacob for 1 year, and then he said, "My name is
And he told
Jacob,
you. Yeah.
not Jacob." And so David to me is the same, but maybe is very different. So
Yeah.
sorry for.
Yeah, no, it's great. And yeah, it's super exciting to be here, Monty, and talk a little bit about crypto. And wherever you want this conversation to go, we can go. We can talk about, DeFi, NFTs, the metaverse, you name it.
Fantastic. I think that the moment is great because the crypto sector is booming like crazy in this moment. It's only red everywhere. What's your take on this moment? It's just a moment in time, and let's go back to business as usual. What's your approach?
Well, okay, so we're a bit red on the year, right? So 2022 did not start really well for crypto, and a lot of this is, from a macro perspective. So, the Fed, Jerome Powell, they're raising interest rates. That is causing a cascade of, down prices on all risk-on assets, and that's what crypto is classified in. So that's like a capture of the moment. But I think if you zoom out, and really, if you're looking at crypto, you have to zoom out, and this is what I feel like the mainstream attention on crypto never does a good job of. They're always like, in the moment, is crypto up today? Is it down? What did it do in the last month? What did it do in the last year? No, let's talk about what it did in the last decade. Okay. And that started a decade ago, 2009, with Bitcoin. And Bitcoin started as something that was valueless, had absolutely no value, and has grown to where it is today, over $1 trillion in this past cycle. And so we are in, I think, and the 2020s, we'll see another decade of this, a massive secular boom market for digital assets, self-sovereign digital assets. These are crypto assets. And that's the big story. And that's really, we often encourage people who are, doing Bankless and getting into crypto, you got to take the long-term perspective. And anyone who is investing in crypto, really investing, is not losing money in crypto. Okay. If you're gambling in crypto, which is, I think, most of the population, different story. You can definitely lose money. But if you are investing, you're buying high quality assets, you're holding them for longish time horizons, 3 to 5 years, you are not losing money in crypto. You're only making money. So this is a massive generational wealth opportunity, and I think it's an opportunity for us to decentralize our institutions and to build from the ground up, build anew. So it's an exciting time to be in crypto, and it's an exciting time to be, I guess, a part of the human story. I think the 2020s are going to be a good decade.
I find it amazing. I mean, I turned 50 this year, so I'm officially old, and I never had a chance like that in my whole life, because before, you just had your bank, and or if you were a startup, I launched several startups in my life, and all right, you go to the VCs or you try, to grow the traditional way, and now is a completely different way to run a business. I mean, if I think that Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing director, or and it's an incredible brand. I mean, they were marketing genius, and so it is really incredible. And I'm really curious to see how many people will adopt. I think you've been tweeting that today. If you are a tourist or a local or something like that,
Yes.
so it's a different mentality.
Yeah, definitely. So, I have this expression. It's like basically, there are 3 different classes of player. You play a video game, Monty, and like the start of the video game, if it's a role playing game or something, you pick your character class. Are you going to be a wizard?
I was playing Pac-Man, but that I think is
okay. It's like Pac-Man. I guess is kind of the same, but like you get to pick your character class when you enter these kinds of video games. I think you get to pick your character class when you enter crypto. And there are like three different character classes to me. There's the tourist who's just there to kind of visit, when they see prices go up, the tourist is like coming to kind of visit the locality. Oh, this is hot, visit here, visit here. There's the mercenary, which is basically just there to get paid. People just trying to get money, make money, right? And that's another character class in crypto that you'll find very common. And then there's the settler, right? So you've got the tourist, you've got the mercenary, and you've got the settler. And my character class, and I think the character class that is going to build this new system. I'm not going to say the most important character class because we need mercenaries and we also need tourists. My character class is the settler. All right. These are the people actually building crypto for the long run. Okay. And if we are going to have a thriving digital civilization, right? If we're actually going to replace the banks, which is part of the goal of crypto, is replace incumbent institutions like banks with crypto economic, systems with ledgers, so it can be peer to peer, and we don't need a middleman in between. If we're going to do that, we need more settlers in this space, and that's why actually, Monty, I kind of like I don't mind bear markets, right? And for your audience, a bear market's when price is going down, when everyone's afraid, when people say crypto is dead. I don't mind bear markets because what happens is the tourists leave, the mercenaries are pretty quiet, and the settlers remain. The settlers stay, and the settlers are the ones building these institutions to last and building for the future. And yeah, so they that character class has a special place in my heart, let's say.
It's incredible also how it's changing fast. I saw BitMEX, they bought, or they trying to buy, I don't think the deal is already done, a German bank. And it's interesting to see. I think Sean Puri call fintech in the front, DeFi in the back, a sort of mullet, DeFi mullet or something like that.
Yes.
Thing that I don't know what does it mean, of course. But it's interesting because when I see all of these yields, we are used that our save account is minus something, or the bank goes you and say, look, give me the money because pay me to hold your money. And then they use my money and they invest my money and they keep the revenues and they don't give me back anything. So that has definitely to change. My only doubt is this one, Ryan. Tell me what you think. Do you think that will be really that there will be really a shakedown, a complete revolution in the banking system, or you think that at the end of the day, the Barclays or the big banks around the world, they say, all right, guys, we are coming in. We have a brand that you can trust. So we'll take care of your Bitcoin, the custody, all the things. You don't have to think about. We do it. We will get a little fee, and so basically nothing changed because they're still there. Of course, you'll have the option to hold your wallet and so on. But how do you think it will play out?
This is a fantastic question, and I actually think you touched upon why we started Bankless, why we started talking about this, because your question, Monty, is really about whether the existing incumbents and institutions are going to co-opt this movement, whether they're going to take it over and make it their own, and whether we end up with the same system we started with. Because remember, the vision for whether it's decentralized finance, whether it's crypto in general, is peer-to-peer, no intermediary. It's so I can send you some value. I could, take out a loan from you, do something with you, Monty, without any bank in between, without any bank taking their toll, controlling us, maybe censoring us, giving us a terrible interest rate, that sort of thing. And so your question is, do you actually think we'll achieve that outcome, or will the banks just come in and start to take charge? I'm optimistic that we can, in fact, achieve that outcome. And I'll tell you why I'm optimistic. Bitcoin started this whole train with this idea of digital scarcity, right? And that's fantastic. Think of Bitcoin as sort of a digital gold, but it was very limited. The only thing you could actually do peer-to-peer with Bitcoin is I call them money verbs, one money verb. I could send you Bitcoin, you could send me Bitcoin. But of course, when you have a money system, you need to do all sorts of other things with your money. You need to borrow your money. You need to lend your money. You need to trade your money from one thing to another. So, the ability to trade. You might want different derivative options on your money, right? All of these other financial things in the Bitcoin world needed to be done through neobanks, right? So, the Coinbases, the Krakens of the world, the BitMEXes of the world, these are, we call them crypto banks, right? They're great. They help the industry, but they do take custody of your private keys. They do make it so that you have to log into their systems and use them as a central intermediary in order to do those other money verbs, those other functions like trading or lending or borrowing. And so what happened? In 2015, 2016, this other system was created, a system of smart contracts, like Bitcoin, but it had a bit more functionality. It was called Ethereum. And on Ethereum, you could actually build some of these banking functions in code. All right. So you wouldn't need an intermediary to trade with. You wouldn't need to deposit your private keys and your funds into a bank like a Coinbase or a Kraken or a BitMEX. You could actually do it on the Ethereum system. This is what we call DeFi. So something like Uniswap is an exchange where I can trade from one asset to another without any banking system, without any centralized intermediary. Okay. And a Barclays or a UBS or HSBC, the big banks of the world, they can't acquire a Uniswap because it's just code. It's just code and network effect, and it's a public utility for the world. Okay. And so this is why DeFi is such an important concept and actually gives me hope that we won't end up with a financial system controlled by a small group of banks and insiders that will actually be able to develop some of these banking protocols to allow us to lend, borrow, trade, pay, do these other things completely on chain, completely peer to peer. And so the success of this entire thing is very much based on, I think, DeFi and whether we can develop scalable, decentralized financial systems faster than the banks can enter and give us like usable experiences on crypto. That's where the real battle is. But I'm optimistic. We're seeing actually on Ethereum more and more value flow from centralized exchanges and go into decentralized finance. Okay, that's huge. Like this year, Uniswap is now bigger in terms of volume, from a volume perspective, in trading pairs perspective, on stable coins and assets like Ether. They're actually exceeding the centralized exchanges. So all of
Wow.
this is very good for that vision of becoming a more decentralized, financial system and not to be co-opted by the big banks of the future.
How do you see the regulation in this? Because I was listening to one of the thousands Michael Saylor interviews, and I find him always fascinating the way he speak, the knowledge, the culture that he have in general, apart from Bitcoin physics and energy. He's really a very interesting character. And he has a lot of experience because I think he's the CEO of a public company. He's the oldest CEO of a public company. So he definitely has a lot of knowledge there. But one objection that he has is, all right, Bitcoin is digital property. That's it. Everyone okay with that? Yes, digital property. But the DeFi world, what is that? So the SEC will come, they will regulate, they will try to enforce, they will try to treat it as a security. So how do you think will change the sector once the US government in particular will start to move?
Yeah, I do think that regulators can act. They have some power to try to act as kingmakers. So we should definitely be have eyes open in terms of what they do. One part of disagreement that I'd probably have with Michael Saylor, and we talked about this before, is he seems to classify only Bitcoin as digital property. The reality is all of it's digital property, right? Bitcoin is just one type of digital property. NFTs, that is another type of digital property. These are non-fungible tokens, the JPEGs and such that people are trading. Ether as an asset is digital property. All of the tokens as well on top of Ethereum are digital property. So this entire crypto space is all digital property. I do expect that regulators may try to, do different things in this space when they feel like they are losing control, right? And so the SEC in the US is probably the institution that we're most worried about, most on the lookout about. But there's a countervailing force, and that is this: like 1 in 6 Americans right now, and a large portion of the world now, I think 200 million, 300 million people are now crypto asset holders. All right.
Right.
So you've got kind of the utility rising up. And at the end of the day, these governments are accountable to their citizens, right? I mean, voters eventually, through their politicians, put the regulators in office and have checks and balances on the regulators' authority through various legislation. So, our biggest defense in the crypto industry is actually delivering value and utility to individual people, and that's starting to happen. So more and more people owning NFTs, more and more people, having crypto assets, more and more people had the experience where they call it a savings account in their bank account, and it's delivering them 0.01% interest,
Yeah.
and their money's getting inflated away at a rate of 7%. So they're losing 7% per year in this inflation account. They're turning to DeFi, where they can get rates of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% APY. And the more people who have this experience, the more pressure there will be on regulators to like treat the industry in a way that is fair and that is right. And I think if you look at this from first principles, which eventually they'll get to, once the regulators get past trying to protect their control of the system and the incumbents that they might feel some sort of stakeholder relationship with, once we get that and we start looking at this from first principles, the regulators of the future will see we've got an open financial system where you could look at an asset and you can right click view source, right? And like you can see everything that underlies this asset, see how it's backed without a third party auditor. This is a much more transparent, open financial system than the system we have. And it makes regulators' jobs so much easier if they're actually trying to help consumers and protect their people, which is their first principles mandate. So it could be bumpy at times, Monty, with regulators, but it's all going to get resolved in time. And the last thing I'll say is if the US falls down on this, right? Maybe Europe doesn't. Maybe Europe presses into crypto.
Yeah. That's
Maybe China does. And so there's this it's like, I mean, imagine shooting yourself in the foot and imposing harsh regulations in the 1990s on the internet. What does that do for a country? It just sets them back, right? So countries can't afford to take that sort of innovation risk either, and I don't think they will long term.
That's a good point, Ryan, because you made me think to the Luna founder, Do Kwon.
Do Kwon, yes, Luna founder,
Kwon.
yes.
And I really enjoyed his interview. I don't know how old is the guy, but I don't. I mean,
he's in his late 20s.
Late 20s, yeah, I would say. He's a young kid, very smart. And during this interview, he has been asked, what do you think about US regulation? And he said, I don't care about US. And this is, for me, living for 20 years in the tech sector where, the CEO of a startup say, well, of course, I mean, we'll consider, because you are very, very tied with Silicon Valley. I mean, US was the place that you had to be, and your exit would have been probably with the US company. So you should be very careful about what you say about US. But this guy, it's one of the first time that I think, wow, that's a revolution. He doesn't really care. And why he should? I mean, why should he care if Biden decide, all right, there is the rest of the world, So, of course, US has a huge impact. And if Biden calls, I don't know, the Italian prime minister or Boris Johnson, they'll probably do something about it. But the world is big. And with the decentralized system, it's not so easy to block here and there. So that's a very interesting new scenario, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned Do Kwon. He's actually suing. He's countersuing the SEC for some action. Like the ball's on this guy. All right, he's saying, you can't take me down. I'm going to sue you. You have no jurisdiction over what we do in South Korea. So yeah, I do think, Monty, this is a global movement, and it's bigger than any single country, obviously. Now, it could threaten some, the US has a very large financial it's been a very large financial hub. It set a lot of regulations that are kind of filtered down globally. But that starts to erode when we have a new kind of financial system that is internet native and it's completely based on the
Yeah.
internet. And the US either has to get with it or other countries will just move on without them. And that goes for any country. You
Yeah.
can't afford to miss this.
One maybe dirty way to stop, let's say, the movement is doing like they did with Assange, or by the way, I've interviewed Assange like 1 month before he was arrested. Like he
Wow.
was, and and he was tired. I mean, someone that really, but enough. It was tired. And I've interviewed another guy. I remember Peter Sunde. He was the Pirate Party, because that's an idea. Imagine that tomorrow someone launch a crypto political party. I mean, they'll get a lot of votes because the crypto community is really tight.
Votes and money.
Votes and money. You have a lot of money, so you have no problem to pay for a huge campaign. So that's really interesting. But on the other side, if you start to say both Assange and this guy, they just went to jail and that's it. And you say why? Well, because we say you go to jail. So that's maybe one card that a government can play, but it's very risky. And the other difference here is that there are so many players, so much money, so many connections, business involved, so celebrities. So it's very difficult to do a worldwide takedown of this movement. That's my
It's
prediction.
very difficult to ban. These systems were built so that they're very difficult to ban. But yeah, I think your point at the end of the day is probably the biggest, or the point around money. Crypto having money is probably the biggest. So you look at someone like Julian Assange or the Pirate Bay, or like the BitTorrents of the world. Okay,
Yeah.
They are not funded in the way that the crypto industry is funded. Like the crypto industry has a lot of capital right now, right? Which is the benefit when you're creating an internet of value, is you make a lot of people wealthy, and those people are going to expend their resources to fight the political battles that need fighting, right? So that's what's different with in old industry incumbents. They had all of the capital, all of the finance. They could squelch the disruptor, the newcomer on the scene. I don't think crypto is going to be that easily squelched. I think it's going to start to rise, and like we've even seen this in the U.S. There are crypto-centric politicians in the 2022 midterms. They're
Right.
campaigning for the crypto industry's capital and money. So I do think this will play out a lot differently than previous decentralized, censorship-resistant type movements of the internet.
Yeah, you're right. Also, because I remember when WikiLeaks started to get traction, and people say, yeah, we want to know what's going on. Basically, the method to get money, the financing system, I don't know, donations, they stopped. The Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. Everyone say no, we will not give you any more money. So you didn't have the possibility to physically get money, even if you had people that wanted to give you money. But now with DeFi, you get money anyway. So good luck with that. And you don't have like a central bank where I can freeze your account and say, no, now you're out. So this is very interesting. I'm curious to see how it will play out. Ryan, I'm curious about one thing. How did you start this Bankless, and what's your background? Because when I tell you how I discovered you, I was watching millions of videos, and then I YouTube start to suggest you like a lot of videos, and then I was watching a video of yours, and you were talking first in a very normal way, instead of some crypto channels that scream, shout, and say relax. I mean, what are you talking about? The other interesting thing is that a lot of channels are very FOMO, or for traders, make money like that, which is a philosophy that is not for me. I mean, I respect for the traders, but it's not what I see, the long-term investments and so on. And you and David, instead, you have, guys, a very, very gentle approach, but very knowledgeable. You go deep into a topic. So I really appreciated that. And I thought, who are these guys? Where is this Ryan coming from? So I was curious about it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe it's I was born in Canada, so maybe that gives me
Right.
sort of the more muted kind of like intake on things, where I don't wave my hands around and get too excited about things. Um, but yeah, I think that the reason we started Bankless is because back in 2019, when we started this thing, no one was talking about decentralized finance, and it was very much Bitcoin centric, which is important but can't deliver everything that we need. And I was kind of annoyed. Like, a mainstream said crypto was dead. Bitcoiners said that the entire industry was only about this one asset, Bitcoin. And I thought, no, oh my God, we're about to revolutionize the entire financial system here, right? We can literally, bank the unbanked and unbank the banked, right? And we're on the cusp of doing that. And there were a few of us that saw that. And I think crypto has always brought a lot of mercenaries and tourists in kind of the bubble froth, because these assets like go up 10x, 50x very quickly. But we were born in kind of the bear market to actually talk about this from a fundamentals perspective. Like, what if you took crypto and you invested in it like Warren Buffett would invest in stocks? Like, look at the fundamentals, look at like the value propositions, look at the key metrics, dig into the technology, actually understand it. I know Warren Buffett doesn't get into the technology, but the philosophy is like, he buys and holds assets. What's his time horizon? Forever.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think there are some crypto assets and some trends in crypto that you can buy and hold forever. So that's been our whole approach at Bankless, is to like get at the root of what's going to be valuable in the long run. And then also, I think the other thing about Bankless is there's an ethos, there's a philosophy. Some people in crypto, more the mercenary character class that we talked about earlier, they're okay with centralizing many aspects of this movement, as long as number goes up and as long as they bring more people into the space, right? And at Bankless, we believe that the entire all of the value generated is due to the decentralized nature of these technologies, right? We believe that we have a responsibility to promote decentralization, because we genuinely believe we are creating a digital property rights system for the 21st century. This is going to be our new property rights system, okay? And so it's important that that property rights system isn't owned by an HSBC or a major bank or a small group of people. It has to be a public utility for the world. And so I think that ethos comes through when we talk about different projects that we support and what we're interested in. It's because if we don't, if we go through and a whole bunch of people get rich on crypto, and we don't actually create a better financial system and a better property system for the world, then I will have viewed this entire experiment as a colossal failure. Like, who cares? We already have that. Like, who cares? So that's another thing we try to imbue Bankless content with, is this, again, long-term games. That's what we're playing. And I think more people should approach crypto. It would be beneficial if more people approach crypto in that way too.
I'm back to the decentralized topic. I have one thing to ask you. I was curious, what's your background? What did you study? Did you study economy? Did you study what?
Business degree, like economics, that sort of thing, as my undergrad. And then I've been an entrepreneur in kind of the healthcare space. And then I, just like a lot of other people, I mean, David, my co-host, he's formerly a physical therapist, right? And we just, we got into crypto. We couldn't stop thinking about it. It actually brought a lot of optimism, right? So like, I think people look around and, I just read a report today that more and more people think that like working hard doesn't do anything. Like, they're just depressed. They're stuck in the system. They're bored with their 9 to 5. They're not getting pay raises. There's no upward mobility. They see the institutions around them. They're crumbling. They're broken. They no longer work for people. I think there's a lot of people who are in that camp, and I somewhat was too. But crypto gives me a lot of hope that we can actually build fair, better systems with more opportunity for more people. And so that's the thing. I would encourage anyone who's listening. It's like, you don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be incredibly technically proficient. You don't have to be an economist or a financial guru to actually understand this. The best thing you can do is just start using it and level up on a weekly basis. So learn a little bit more about this new system on a weekly basis, and you'll make great strides. But like anyone can do this stuff.
You know, you're right, Ryan. I was thinking that the hope side, the optimistic side, I never really thought about it, but you are absolutely right. I remember when I studied law, and I was a lawyer at the beginning of my career with long hair and gel. And the interesting thing is that then I was really unhappy, and I lived in Italy. And then I met the internet. That was in that period
Yes.
the new thing, and I thought, wow, this is
Wasn't it
incredible.
amazing? Yeah.
It's an opportunity that it didn't exist before, and I don't have to ask the permission to someone to create my website or so. And crypto gives me exactly the same feeling, and it's such an bigger opportunity for any kind of job. You're right, because you can be, I don't know, community manager. Think how many community manager do you need? You can do so many jobs, and there are so many jobs at the moment, jobs offers in any kind of sector. So, or you can launch your own thing, but it's fantastic. So, and Bankless, when did you launch Bankless?
So I think the newsletter started in 2019, or it might have been 2020. I can't
Right,
recall. And the podcast started, 18 months ago,
right.
or so. So yeah, it's relatively new.
But
And
is already massive, the newsletter.
yeah, so the newsletter is about, I think, 160,000 subscribers. We just
Wow.
started with like a few tweets on Twitter. Podcast has been pretty exciting from a growth perspective too. So we're getting close to like 2 million downloads per month, which never thought we'd see. And yeah, I think just it's not just Bankless, right? The growth is coupled to this incredible industry that is just growing leaps and bounds. Like last year, we had all sorts of celebrity mainstream moments with NFTs was absolutely huge. Again, another digital property that was built on top of these crypto systems. So that's going to happen more and more as new use cases are going to be unlocked. And I really do believe by the end of this decade, we'll effectively have onboarded the world into crypto, like billions of users. This is the next wave of the internet.
When your mom or your dad said, all right, Ryan, so what are you going to do? And you say, well, I'm doing Bankless now. And they say, oh, that sounds great. Good. And so how are you going to make money out of it? You had already a business model in mind with David. You already had like a plan. What's
No
the
plan,
your think
no
about it?
plan whatsoever. Yeah, no plan. We just wanted to create, like for the newsletter. I started that before I met David, and I actually met David through his writings and my
Oh, okay.
writings. And there was no plan. It was just like someone needs to talk about this, right?
Right.
This is going to be absolutely massive. The thesis for the space is off, and someone needs to be talking about decentralized finance and Ethereum and some of these new protocols that are being developed because they're going to be world changing. The podcast, David had his own podcast before this where he talked about crypto subjects, and he had started writing for Bankless a little bit. And he was like, Ryan, we've got to start a podcast. I was like, David, come on, I'm busy. Like, what are we going to talk about? We'll run out of content after the first month. And he was like, trust me, start a podcast. You'll get addicted to it. And sure enough, we started a podcast. It was once a week. Now we scaled to twice a week. Now we're 5 times a week on a podcast. I never thought I would be doing this with I never thought I'd be in like doing media, podcasting, newsletter stuff. So it's been kind of a passion project that that has pivoted. And of course, like there's ways to monetize this. There's subscriber fee. We offer some extra benefits. We have paid sponsors, that sort of thing. But the goal is not really to monetize. That just
Yeah.
came as a byproduct.
And you also have a conference, I saw, and a token. Tell me
Yeah.
about the token. I don't understand the token.
Yeah. Okay. So the token is basically, so the idea behind this is an experiment with DAOs. So DAOs, they stand for decentralized autonomous organizations. And so think of these as like,
Yeah,
corporations
Fusion
that,
DAO and so on.
yeah. So you put these on chain, right? And these are effectively co-managed bank accounts. And so the community can vote on various proposals that it wants to fund and put forward with its native token. So we had an idea, and like Bankless is small, the newsletter and the podcast, just a small group of like David, myself, and a few others. And we had said when we had launched the newsletter in the very beginning, if what do we want to do? What's the mission of Bankless? To onboard 1 billion people to crypto, and like we can't do that with a team of 5 people. And we didn't really want to expand and become kind of a conglomerate and lose our way and become something that we hated. So this DAO type opportunity is an opportunity for the community to effectively scale itself.
Right.
So we launched a DAO and also a token called Bank. This was back in May of last year, to all premium subscribers who had been subscribers to Bankless to date. So it kind of seeded the community of like 4,000 or so people with this token. And then we turned it over to them and said, okay, here's the goal. We want to be the world's first community DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. We want to bring the Bankless message to 1 billion people, get them involved in crypto. And we want to create media and tools and products to do that. And so it was spun off, and the community is like seeded from Bankless listeners. People have been tuned into our stuff, and they're building all sorts of things. They're building tools. They've spun off like 3 podcasts. There are 4 or 5 other newsletters that have been produced, from the Bankless DAO. They're creating like ways, like new tools where you can manage administrative rights inside of Discord, which is a chat server. So they're actually building products. It's been incredible to see what they've turned out. And this idea, I think, is a theme for creators in the 2020s, which is basically like the idea of rather than a creator creating everything, you co-create with your community, right? It's like your community, I'm sure, Monty, is like a bunch of like-minded people who like your work, and you have a set of shared values, right? If you didn't have those shared values,
bald. That's my rule.
there you go. It's Bald DAO. Monty's Bald DAO.
Bald DAO. That's a genius idea. You are totally genius. All right.
And so, like, what can your community co-create with you along your vision? That's what this experiment's been about. So I don't know how it'll play out, but it's been a lot of fun. I think it's one of the most it's the most active and most widely distributed social token. And I think there'll be a lot of other experiments like this in the months and years to come.
How do you manage it technically? Do you have developers? You like have a technical partner? What do you do?
So I don't participate very much. So Bankless is just focused on the newsletter and the podcast, and this community is kind of elected various guild managers. So there's it's divided into these sub organizations they call guilds. So there's a legal guild. It's putting out some great legal material in crypto. Right. There's a design guild, there's a podcast guild, there's a writers, there's all of these sub guilds, and they kind of manage themselves. And so every season, the DAO votes on what projects and what guilds should be allotted bank tokens. And that is conducted on something called Snapshot, which is just on Ethereum. So it's like there's a proposal system, and you kind of vote on Ethereum and what your proposals you want to pass or not. And so it's managing itself. And people in the community have risen up to be sort of de facto leaders of this thing. And I think creators in general would be blown away by the amount of talent that exists inside of their communities. And this is just such a cool way to tap into that talent.
Love it. And where is the conference? Is it a physical conference with COVID or virtual conference?
This is a physical conference. This is something called Permissionless. So it's happening May 17th to 19th. I think this is going to be the largest DeFi conference that has happened. Of course, this is in Florida, and there's going to be 3 tracks to it. There's going to be a metaverse track. There's going to be a DeFi track. And also an institution regulatory type track. So we're putting this on with our friends from Blockworks. So they're kind of managing a lot of the back end for us, and we are helping with content and getting the word out. So we're super excited about that.
Cool, very interesting. Blockwars, they are really good. I follow them on Twitter. They always have some good news, and they are always on point. I was curious, Ryan, about the decentralized, let's say, side effects. I do a lot, on social media, and one thing that I'm really cross about is that maybe you build a great community on YouTube or Facebook, TikTok, wherever it is, and then the platform itself say, that's it, your organic reach, it's over. And I already had it. I mean, I had it on Facebook. I have over 1 million followers. From one day to another, Zach said, nah, that's it.
Wow.
If you're bald, no more rich. And it's crazy. From one day to another, you cannot reach your followers, your community. It's crazy. So a decentralized system, not only in finance, but also with platforms, is really needed, because you can't have, 5 players deciding you in, you out, or imagine if Google decide to de-index someone or a company or a country.
Absolutely.
I mean,
It's too much power.
become invisible. It's impossible. Or Apple on iOS, and so it's impossible like that. On the other side, if you decentralize the system, I was listening to Balaji. Do you know Balaji?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is like great, incredible brain, saying, well, the decentralized system, DSO, there are several decentralized social networks experiments. On one side is great because you can't be banned or censored like that. On the other side, my question, I don't have an answer, and maybe also it could be a problem for DeFi, is if something goes wrong, if, crazy fake news start to go or crazy scams start to appear, who gonna stop that? So if it's fully decentralized, what kind of systems you'll need to prevent like huge problems, because there is no one that can physically say, all right, guys, let's stop that. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think the way, like, my mental model for this is, layers are very important, right? And so you can build centralized applications on a decentralized layer, but you can't do the inverse of that. You can't build decentralized applications on a centralized layer, right? And so if you look at like the successful protocols of the early internet, Web 1, things like HTTP, TCP/IP, mail, these are all open, permissionless, and credibly neutral. And credibly neutral means like they're not biased in favor of one group or another. Everyone can use them equally, and like it's completely open. There's no strings attached here. The problem that we have in Web 2 is, and by Web 2, I mean all of these social media platforms, is we've gotten away from creating credibly neutral protocols, and we've centralized so many things. Like, Twitter is a perfect example of this. When you tweet something and your Twitter account, Monty, that is private property. It seems like it's public, doesn't it? Because you're sending this out to the world.
Sure.
But no, you have terms of service with Twitter. They can ban you at any time. You can't export your follower list. Why? Because it's not yours. But
Yeah.
it feels like it should be, doesn't it? Like, shouldn't it? I mean, you spent the time to develop
Absolutely.
your following on all your social media platforms. It seems like you should own it. So Web
Also,
2 has,
sorry to interrupt, Ryan. The value of the company is
it's
created by us, the creators and the
100%.
users. It's
100%.
not, there is no value in itself. So that's the
100%. It's the value is created on the backs of its users, right? And what would Twitter be without its fantastic content creators and without its network? And so the idea of like Web 2 and social media is we've strayed far too far in the other direction here, right? Even something like logins. You log into all the websites and it's Facebook and Google. Like these are the logins that you use. And so Web 3 is an attempt to, dial it back, swing the pendulum in the other direction, and decentralize some of these things. So with Ethereum, for instance, you can even log in to places with your Ethereum address. And again, that's something that you own. It's like from your private key, right? It's like you own it. No third party does. It's publicly neutral system. So now we've got a login system that is completely decentralized. And I think with that primitive, we can start to build a lot of cool things on top of it. Because again, you can build centralized applications on decentralized protocols, but you can't do the reverse. And so that's why this Web3 movement is so important, is because we have an opportunity to start decentralizing these things over time. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's like a Trojan horse. Like social media platforms like Twitter is rolling out features for NFTs. And that is, rather than a blue check mark on Twitter, it's like your verified Twitter profile is a blue check mark. They issue that. It's, you have to trust Twitter. Okay. Now they are calling a public blockchain to verify your NFT. So it's not trust Twitter, it's verified, which is a big difference. Verified by this open, credibly neutral platform. And so they're getting into the NFT space. Facebook, Meta, Instagram doing the same thing. And that's going to be a Trojan horse to get some of these Web3 ideas into social media. Well, we're not going to have a Web3 social media thing overnight, but I think over time we'll start to get there as these tools will adopt it. And Web3 will actually propagate it and help us get crypto more widespread.
Can't wait, Ryan, to have my hexagon face on Twitter.
Yeah, do you own any NFTs yet, Monty?
I'm launching my NFT.
You are?
Yeah. I'm launching.
What's that going to be?
So it's a utility NFT inspired by VeeFriends, Gary Vee,
Totally.
Gary Vee, I've interviewed Gary Vaynerchuk before he was Gary Vee. He was launching VaynerMedia, and he was like exhausted, but you already see like, wow, this is an entrepreneur, he will not stop. And so when I saw VeeFriends, I thought, wow, that's fantastic, because I mean, I have a 3 million strong community. And so on one side, I asked a famous Italian crypto artist to create this, our table tennis rackets, our 10,000 table tennis rackets, because I was a former professional table tennis player. So
wow.
And the table tennis has got a lot of values, because you need long-term view, effort, you need to be humble, entrepreneurial. So which is my community values. And but it will be a utility NFT. So it will be a pass to have access to, discounts, events, calls, and be part of the ecosystem of all these crazy Made in Italy initiatives that I'm launching. So, but
that's amazing.
I'm excited by that, but I understand. I also launched it because I wanted to learn more by doing it, and I understand how there are so many scams. As soon as I say I'll launch my NFT, and already 5 scams on OpenSea with my face, it's crazy. It's like, wow, guys,
doesn't it feel though a little bit like the early internet? You remember those days?
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
It was weird, right? And this is something Chris Dixon has said to us on Bankless podcast. He was like, the internet was getting boring, right?
Yeah.
And like it was getting sterile. The same 5 companies doing everything on the internet. And now the internet's weird again in crypto.
Yes.
And I've definitely noticed that. Like all the scammers, all the weirdness you're seeing in launching your NFT, that's part of it. That's how you know it's real. That's how you know it's organic.
You know what's the other incredible thing for me, Ryan, that is happening is the following. For many years, I've been interviewing everyone in the, let's say, tech startup sector. And more or less, I know more or less everyone, or directly, or, you know about that guy. You know about Chris Dixon, okay, or Justin Kahn or Alexis on. All right, the names are more or less always the same. Today, every day, I get messages from people that have no idea who they are. They do incredible things. And I think, where are you coming from? Like, I didn't see you pass, and you're already there. How did it happen? So it's incredibly great, because you can really see a lot of movements that is not based always on the same, VCs, Andreessen Horowitz. Yeah, of course, they invest also in Web3, but it's not only them anymore, or Y Combinator. So it's really, and the other incredible thing, but tell me if it's true, you meet more people than me in the sector. So many people are not from US. They speak like a bad English, like my English, so are from, any kind of country. And this is incredible. Before it was not like that.
I totally agree, and I think that's part of what we're disrupting is actually, fundraising and capital raises. So, a lot of that has been concentrated in various financial sectors in the past, right? So, like, London at one point in time, New York, Sand Hill Road and Silicon Valley, right? More famously with the internet. This is not like that at all. I mean, access to capital is completely meritocratic. It's completely global. And so the old VC connections of I know these set of entrepreneurs and as a developer, as a builder, I have to move to Silicon Valley. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so you find all sorts of fantastic DeFi builders all over the world. And then NFTs have also supercharged this. So some of the new creators with fantastic communities coming into the NFT space. I mean, y- y- anywhere in the world. They can come from anywhere in the world, and also like any age. There's
Yeah.
a kid who listens to Bankless who he's 12 years old and he's writing his own Solidity contracts and like launching his own NFTs. I'm just like 12 years old, right? And like I don't care because it's so the great thing about this is we're always in search for a more meritocratic systems, right? And there's no such thing as a perfect meritocracy, but crypto is getting us closer, a bit closer. Now we don't have to be based in one part of the world or another, or be a citizen of one country or another to have the best global banking system in the world, because that's in DeFi, right? That's on these various blockchains. That's on Ethereum. Everyone has equal access to it. Everyone has equal access to capital raises. I don't think crypto will create a perfect world of equalization and solve income inequality. But what it can do is create equal access to some opportunities that were formerly reserved for like various already wealthy networks. So this is a good thing, and why we often talk about like crypto as being sort of a renaissance, almost like a golden age for humanity. You see all of these creators being funded. You see all of this fantastic art, all of these new communities that are being built from the ground up, and this is something new. We haven't seen that before, and it feels very much like the 1990s internet.
Yeah.
It feels very much like what we've seen in the renaissances of previous times, and that's why it's so exciting.
How do you evaluate projects? I was curious about it because I don't know, in DeFi, I'm thinking, I don't know, Alchemix. I saw this project, maybe on Bankless, there was an interview that you've done, guys. And I thought, wow, that's a genius idea, self-repaying loan. Um, the question is, how do I know if that protocol is legit? It will close tomorrow morning. How do you evaluate, all the projects? Do you have like a checklist to say, okay, this is something that really we need to pay attention? This is no, forget about it. How do you do this research?
Alchemix is interesting too because like the founder of Alchemix is his name is Scoopy Trooples, and
Yes.
he's got like a witch avatar, completely anonymous, right?
Right.
Like so, one thing I'll say is you can't evaluate these things the way previous investors evaluated
Yeah.
investments, right? Where there's like, an MBA in the room and you have, PowerPoint, the slides, like this is an anonymous individual on Twitter that has started this project and created it. So that's definitely different. Um, I guess I would say one thing is, people don't have to. Again, it's when you get into crypto, you kind of choose your character class, and I would just caution people against trying to become the best crypto investor in the world because it is like a 24-hour a day
Yeah.
skill set to identify these super early stage projects. All right. And like evaluate the team, evaluate the code, evaluate the idea, look at kind of the execution of the place. And I feel like because it's open, a lot of people think they can do that when they're not really going to be good at doing that. So it still requires a specialized experience and expertise to identify these projects very early. But like
Right.
one of the, it's kind of the, standard things like team, product, like these are the things that really matter. I would just encourage people, if you don't know how to do that and you're not willing to make it your full-time job, there's all sorts of other ways to get exposure in crypto, right? So like Ether is a good investment. Bitcoin is going to be around for the long. You can buy index funds of different DeFi protocols, like tokens. There's something called the DPI, which is the DeFi index of like the top 20, 15, 20 DeFi projects. Those are probably the ways to get exposure. If you want to become like an investor and make this a job, then that's a different calling.
That's a different thing. But how do you evaluate all of the messages that you receive, all the pitches that you receive to get an interview, maybe in your podcast, to understand if abracadabra is good or not, or Alchemix or any kind of other. Every 2 seconds there is something new. So, well, what do you? How do you understand what kind of research you do to understand if these projects really make sense, or you just don't want to have anything to do with these people?
Well, one thing is I'm here full time, so we get to talk to so many of the brightest minds in DeFi on Bankless, and so I feel like I'm reasonably up to speed. But there are still sectors like I don't know very much about, and wouldn't touch as much. So NFTs is an example of that. Like going deep on NFTs is not my forte. But what do we look for? I guess the team is number one, right? Like who is actually building this thing, and do they have a prototype, right? Because the barriers to entry are so low in crypto. If you have just a white paper and slides, you don't have anything to like show for it, then that's a huge red flag. So what have they built, and like the evaluation of the team. And then from a product perspective, I don't know, you just develop instincts over time of what could work and what, it's too early for. And that's the thing.
Right.
I feel like so many of these ideas, just like the early internet, it's all about timing. And so you have to think about like, okay, is the wallet infrastructure ready for this particular idea at this point in time? Are the different other protocols underlying this new DeFi app that you're building, are they ready for prime time? Could they support the liquidity of it? And so that's also a gut feel. And
Right.
I think if you're investing at this early stage, you also have to be ready to be wrong far more than you're right. So you have to be willing to like invest money in the weird, crazy ideas so that you don't miss them. Like one example is Axie Infinity, right?
Yeah.
And that has an NFT project that's been on an absolute tear for the last year or so. I remember seeing that in like 2020 and 2021, right? And identifying, oh, you know what, this could work, but I don't know. And there were a number of other NFT games that I was interested in too, and invested in those as well. And had no idea if any of them would work if the timing was right. But things turned out very well with Axie. And so sometimes you just have to spread your bets out a little bit
Right.
and play the venture capitalist game where you're investing in 10 things and you're hoping one of those does a 10x, a 50x.
Fantastic. To end our conversation, I was curious when we'll meet in let's say and at the end of this year. It will be Christmas. I will send you Pandoro. That is an Italian fantastic cake instead of panettone. Pandoro is a very specific, and I'll send you the Pandoro and say, so Ryan, how was this year? Did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish for you and for Bankless? So what's your plan for 2022?
Yeah, I guess we want to get Bankless to 500,000 people from a subscriber perspective, and then we have goals to increase our podcast listenership. But I think largely, how about crypto? And I think this is going to be a really important year for a network that I'm very excited about. We talk about so often on Bankless, and I think kind of an underpinning of a lot in crypto, which is Ethereum. And there's going to be kind of two testing grounds for Ethereum this year. One is this thing called the merge that is happening hopefully in July, which is where Ethereum gets rid of proof of work and replaces it with proof of stake. and it has an entire economic policy upgrade. So its issuance, the amount of supply it's injecting every year, decreases from like 4% to probably 0%, or even the negative territory, and becomes deflationary. So will that implementation go well? How will that work out? That's a huge, I think, milestone for all of crypto, and particularly Ethereum. It's probably the biggest event that's happening this year. The other question, I think, for crypto is, how is it going to scale while preserving decentralization? All right.
Right.
And by scalability, I mean, people have used things like Ethereum, and transaction fees are very high. That's not how we scale this to the world. And so there's this whole solution set called Layer 2 that is coming, going live this year more and more. And I want to, at the end of the year, I'm hoping that we have the merge done for Ethereum. I'm hoping that we have Layer 2 solutions that are widely deployed, and they're onboarding millions of people. So we have millions of people using Layer 2s. And I'm hoping that Bankless has scaled. And I don't care about prices at that point in time, because I know number will go up, whether it's this year or next year, or in 3 to 5 years time, if we achieve scalability and the merge and some of those other things.
I think today, I don't know who wrote the tweet, but said the less interesting thing about Ethereum is the price. And I totally agree. By the way, you had a fantastic interview, the most recent one. I invite everyone to give it to watch it. Is with Vitalik, and he's talking about the master plan and the merge, the purge, the plurge, the furge.
Yes, you listen to that one. That's
like
someone you should have on, by the way,
languages.
Monty. You should have
Sorry?
Vitalik on sometime. You should have Vitalik on your
He's
podcast.
he's too intelligent for me. I mean, how many languages he speaks? He's I don't know. Every time he speaks, I think, wow, this guy is really smart. So I don't know.
You should do a podcast with Vitalik that's just not like barely about crypto.
Right.
Just because he has so many other interests. It's like life extension and just economics, politics. Such a brilliant mind.
It's incredible. It's really incredible. Ryan, was such a pleasure to talk with you. Really, thank you so much for your time, and good luck for everything. Keep going. You're doing a fantastic job. And say bye to David. And
I will.
And I'll see you in Brighton in UK sooner or later.
Sounds great. Thanks, Monty.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.